Hello and welcome to The Voluntarist. Today we'll be responding to a video by Democratic Socialist '01. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Hello everyone, this is my second video on that absurd ideology known as anarcho-capitalism.
First, I'd like to address the sentence in quotation marks. Who said this? An actual anarcho-capitalist or a democratic socialist mocking anarcho-capitalism? Citation needed. Second, I'd like to address the tone of the author. It's a bit angry and perhaps even disgusted merely at the thought of anarcho-capitalism. The viewer immediately knows that a fair, unbiased presentation is just not going to happen.
In my first video, I said it was an oxymoron. I still hold that view, but I think I have found a historic example of the closest thing to an anarcho-capitalist society.
The contempt in his voice aside, look at this picture. This is how the author views anarcho-capitalism. An old white man daydreaming about how to get more money by killing indigenous peoples. Just keep this prejudice in mind as you listen to the presentation.
The Congo Free State, which was considered to be the private property of Leopold II the Belgian. I must make it clear that the Congo Free State was not a Belgian colony. It was the private property of Leopold II and run for his own personal profit.
Democratic Socialist, the author of the video, not actual Democratic Socialist, is arguing that because the Congo was given to a king as a political favor to rule over as his own private property, this is an example of a stateless society. To this video's author, a dictator is the same thing as a stateless society. This is a blatantly self-contradictory line of reasoning.
The 20 million people who lived in the Congo were fully under his personal control. After all, they were living on his privately owned land.
The 20 million people in the Congo were completely under his personal control. And did you notice here? It says, the Congo fell under King Leopold's personal control, not that of the Belgian state. So herein lies the confusion. The author thinks that the Congo must have been a stateless society because an official government wasn't in charge. After all, it was called the Congo Free State. What the author does not understand is that government is just a bunch of people. The Belgian government is people just as King Leopold was a person. What makes a state is the presence of a monopoly of coercion and a central institution with the authority to restrict the freedoms of the populace without contention. King Leopold owned the Congo like any other king or violent dictator would own a country. This is not an example of a stateless society. It's nothing more than one more example among countless others of the terrible cruelty and economic devastation brought about by totalitarian states.
The natives of the Congo were forced to harvest rubber from trees so Leopold II could sell it to overseas buyers. If they failed to make the quota set by Leopold II, who was the private owner of the country, then they would be mutilated or killed by Leopold II's private police force, known as the Force Publique.
King Leopold had a private police force in his private property, which he used to terrorize and enslave his private slaves. I don't know another word. People living on his land, I guess. Or we could say that King Leopold had a military in his country which he used to enslave the indigenous population. I ask you, what makes a state? What makes a government? As I've pretty much already said, a state exists when there is a body of authority which a population under the jurisdiction of said authority must obey its will under the threat or use of violence. King Leopold was given the Congo and ruled it like a state. That is to say that the people living there had no choice but to comply with his will or die. Make no mistake, this was a totalitarian regime. King Leopold was a king. To make this clearer, there are two things that a stateless society simply would not have had, which were both present in King Leopold's Congo. Centralized direction of the economy to harvest rubber on the whim of a dictator, and a centralized monopolistic police force. In short, centralization conjoined with coercive monopoly is a very good indicator of the existence of a state, which is what we had here in this example.
It is estimated that up to 15 million people perished due to King Leopold's blatant disregard for the people of the Congo. Other sources say that the repression was so severe that the population of the Congo dropped from 20 million to 8 million, more than half the population.
People died because they were not allowed to do anything but harvest rubber. Had the population of the Congo been left in peace, the individuals living there would have been free to pursue their own interests, which I'm sure would have included eating, drinking, building shelter, and not being slaves. Instead, their country was hijacked by foreign governments, and a ruthless mass murderer was given complete control of the land and all its people without the consent of those people who were the actual owners of the land. This is not an example of a stateless society. However, it is an excellent example of why a centrally directed economy is a terrible, dangerous idea. When the labor of millions have been directed by a single person or a small group of people, the events which occurred in the Congo under the rule of King Leopold have historically been the kinds of things which can be expected. The Great Leap Forward under Mao Zedong is one such example. The author said that the people of the Congo died due to blatant disregard on the part of King Leopold. This is true. Had King Leopold had any regard for self-ownership or the free will of other human beings, he would have seen that centralized government is evil, and at the very least, he would have denounced slavery. Instead, he completely disregarded the people's humanity and established a dictatorship using the wealth and power he had gained from his ties to other governments.
Again, I point out the Congo Free State represents the only example in modern times, to my knowledge, where a nation was considered to be the private property of one man. The Belgian state only stepped in 1908. Of course, Leopold II, who treated Congo like his own private enterprise, was the most brutal colonial master in the 19th century. This would be the end result of an ANCAP society. It would end up being the dictatorship of the rich who would be able to enforce the rule through private armies.
Understanding that the Congo under King Leopold was not a stateless society, we can move on to the claim that the end result of an anarcho-capitalist society would be violent dictatorship by the rich. I won't try to denounce this claim as impossible simply because anything is possible. But I will say that King Leopold did not achieve his status as a ruthless dictator of the Congo through any means available to him in a free market. The land he was given was taken from its rightful owners by the claims of a government, and his personal wealth was a result of his ability to tax his Belgian subjects. The only way he was able to drain the Congo dry and kill 12 million of his laborers was because he was ensured a continuing flow of tax revenue from Belgium. Waging war and killing your workers is not a good way to remain wealthy. It's just not good business sense. This is why private slave owners in America who actually had to purchase slaves, unlike Leopold, invested in the slaves' housing, food, and clothing. The living conditions were piss poor, and terrible things happened, but killing slaves was financially stupid. King Leopold behaved as he did because he had zero financial risk. Yet another reason why this scenario is highly implausible in the context of a free market society.
Why do I think anarcho-capitalism is still an oxymoron after reading about the Congo Free State? Leopold II was only granted the Congo because the other European states agreed to recognize him as the nation's private owner. See the infamous Berlin Conference, where Africa was divided among the European powers. If Leopold's claim was not recognized by the other European states, the Congo would not have become his own piece of private property. Remember, private property cannot exist without the state. So there you go. The closest thing to an anarcho-capitalist society resulted in a massive genocide.
I'm going to ignore the Berlin Conference. I feel like I've made it painfully clear that the involvement of governments in determining land ownership officially distances this entire scenario from anything that would be seen in an anarcho-capitalist society. With respect to the claim that private property can exist without the state, I won't take the time in this video to explain the extensive systems of privately owned dispute resolution firms, security agencies, and ownership record-keeping organizations which would most likely exist in an anarcho-capitalist society. For now, I'll just say private property can exist without the state. Property is just a belief that something belongs to someone, coupled with their ability to prove they deserve it to the society in which they live. A receipt from Taco Bell proves I owned the burrito I ate. There's no reason why a central authority needs to get involved. Well, that's all for this video. If you appreciated my arguments, please leave a like, and if you think I'm wrong, be sure to give your counter-arguments below. Polite debate is highly encouraged. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Narco-capitalist, narco-capitalist, narco-capitalist.